Hello and welcome to the second video for week 9. We're doing scene changing and we're going to add some audio to it now and fade that audio out. Second one, I've cleverly named it Video 1A. And yeah, so let's get started. First things first, I took the project that we just made in the earlier video and renamed it Sound Scene Change, but it's still basically the same project. You know, we can start it up, we fly through the portal, we go into Sphere World. Life is as it should be. All right, so let's set this up for audio. To do that, we're going to first of all add our RTC Mix package that has all the RTC Mix stuff in it. So we'll import everything. All right. Go into URTC Mix. Let's get the prefab. Let's bring RTC Mix main up in here. Okay. Since we know that we're going to need that, we'll just leave it right there. And I think I had already set this, but let's go ahead and make sure that we're allowing unsafe code. Yes, I've got that checked. So this is all good. All right. Now, next thing I want to do is create an object that's going to be generating the RTC Mix sound. It's just going to be kind of an ambient sound that's going to be kind of crunching in the background. So let's create an empty object, okay? And we'll call this object scene sound. Okay. And let's go ahead and get it set to do audio. So I'm going to bring up this beep script. All right. And then on scene sound, we're going to create a new script. Okay. And we'll just call it scene sound. Okay. Create and add. And let's go out now to our assets. Scene sound. Let's edit that one. Right next to it is beep. Let's go ahead and add the things we're going to need. We're going to need all of this stuff about the object number, RTC Mix. Let's get down here. Let's make sure it's all working. Let's grab all that. Okay. So let's go to scene sound. Again, we've done this a billion times before in class. Paste it all in. All right. Now we need to add our capabilities here that do the actual crunching of the samples. Put that down in here. Okay, and now when we play this, we should get a nice beep out of the thing. Aha, but I did forget something I always forget. Add component. Audio source. There we go. Now when I play it, I should get a beep. Here we go. Yep, there's our beep. Okay, we're going to replace that beep now with some sound, some decent sound. I've got a max patch that I've already got up and running here. Okay, and first of all, here's what it sounds like. Okay, let's take a look at it just for fun. It's very simple. We're just taking some generic stuff. I'm creating a new wavetable using random amplitudes of the harmonics each time, so it has slightly shifting timbres. Choosing a random frequency between 200 and 1000 hertz, adding a little bit of randomness to one that goes along with it, so it gives it some modulation. We're going to talk about audio here in a little bit too, and I'll talk about this. And then we're just generating a max bang, so it'll go over and over and over again. In fact, that's part of the thing I wanted to show is how do you turn off a process that's going over and over and over again in order to change to a new scene. All right, so let's get this, and let's grab our score here, copy. Okay, we'll hide this. And of course, we're going to go out to the scorealizer, right? Let's paste it in, hit return and hit Control D. And there's our scorealized score, string formatted score. Let's shut this off. Go back to Unity, down here. Go to our scene sound, all right? And now we're going to take this, get rid of that, paste this all in. Now, it can't find string because we also need to say using system up here in order to get the string functions, all right? And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this string score, I'm going to make that a global variable up here because we're going to use it in our max bang. So let's get rid of this down here. All right, so that's okay. And in fact, we now need to check for max bang. So we're going to say if rtcmix dot check bang rtcmix objno is equal to 1, then, oh, we forgot to do our rtcmix.sendScore. Once we do it, rtcmix.sendScore score objno, and we're going to simply copy that and also put that down here. Okay, so basically the score is going to generate a max bang when we first send it off. When it sees that bang, it'll resend the score. So that's how we're going to get the thing kind of going over and over and over again. Okay, so this should work. Let's give it a try, make sure we have our sound happening as it should. Okay, scene sound, we already added the audio source to it. So when we play, we should hear the sound. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Okay, now we want that sound to stop when we go through the scene change. All right, now, turns out it will already, but here's what happens, okay? We go through, now we go to our scene change. Yeah, it stopped very abruptly, all right? That's because in scene 2, there is no RTCMix process making this sound. So once it loads the new scene, it just stops it. Well, we're going to want to fade it out nicely before we switch the scene. All right. And we're also going to want to get rid of any sort of RTCMix stuff that's going on. So let's go back to our scene sound. All right. And let's create another function here. And we're going to say it's public. We're going to call it public void. We'll call it stop sound. And the only thing that's going to do is flush the score of optional. By being public, we can call it from some other game object. When it gets called, all it does is simply goes through anything that's scheduled on the score, any max bangs that are coming up, any wavetables that are going, and just blitzes them all. So that's essentially what you heard when we went through that portal. But what we're going to do is fade out the audio prior to doing this operation. So it'll be silent. We won't hear it happen. All right. How do we do that? Well, to do this, we're going to use the Unity sound system. Okay. When you've got this audio source, notice it has this output and it says none audio mixer by default. You're actually going through the Unity sound system at that point. We're going to make that explicit. And in fact, we have an audio mixer here. Okay, but we're going to make a new audio mixer. Create audio mixer. Okay, and we're going to call this master mix. Okay, master mix. And now if we look at our audio mixers, notice we have this thing here that says master. We're going to make our audio output go through that master mixer. All right. How do we do that? Well, we simply take this and let's see. I think we simply, well, we don't drag it up there. We're going to do it this way because I know this dragging is a little bit tricky. We're actually going to like click on this little button over here next to the output. Then we can select the master there. Now it says master mix. Now I'm going to show you how this works. Let's play it, okay? And now notice that we have audio coming through this. We can grab this if we edit it in play mode. We can grab this. We can actually alter the volume. Okay? The cool thing is that we can script that. All right, so we're going to be able to basically fade this down as as a scripting function. So essentially, when we enter that trigger, we can start a fade down of this output and then flush the RTC mix and then change the scene. All right. Now, in order to do that, we need to get to the parameter volume for this master mixer. This is a little bit weird. I'm not sure why they did this today, but see where it says expose parameters and it says list is empty? That's because we have to expose this parameter for scripting. And to do it, you go up here and you control click on this and you can say expose volume to script. We'll say, yeah, we want to expose it. So bang, there we go. Now notice we have an exposed parameter down here. It says volume of master 1. Here, I'll fill this in. Now we're going to change this name. We're not going to call it my exposed parameter. We're going to call this mixer vol so that we know what it is. All right. So now we've got an exposed parameter, mixer vol, which is the volume of the master mixer. Okay. So now, we're going to go back to our scene change script. Let's go here. And we called that portal trig, I believe. All right. And we're going to add some capabilities now that will allow it to do this. All right. Now, the first thing I want to show you is how we're going to get this sort of mixer scripted in terms of the numbers we're going to send to it, because that's a little bit weird too. All right. I'm going to type this in: float out val equals mathf.lerp. I'm going to talk about this in a second, okay? And we're going to say 0.0f minus 45.0f. We're going to create a variable here called tval, okay? And tval, we're going to make a float up here, okay? And we're going to initially set tval to be 0.0f. What the heck is going on here? Well, let's just take a look at it, and you'll kind of see what happens, okay? Let's just look at this variable tval, okay? lerp, mathf.lerp. I'm not going to bring up the documentation page, but this stands for linear interpolation. What this will do is go from this value to this value as this goes from 0 to 1. So it's kind of like that ping pong function that we dealt with, only this only goes one way. All right. Now, tval we're going to modify. Let's say here tval plus equals time dot delta time. And let's just do that. Now, time dot delta time is how much time has changed from the last frame. Typically, it's if we're 60 frames a second, it's 1/60th of a second or so. So that means that if we add them all up, basically, this will go from 0 to 1 over 1 second. Now, if we want it to take a longer time, we're going to modify that kind of addition there. But let's go ahead and see if it does it, okay? Let's look at our console now. And let's start it up, and you should see numbers that go from 0 to 1 and then just kind of halt. All right, here we go. There we go. Yep. Right, now, we're printing tval, okay, not the, I printed the wrong one. Let me go back and change that, okay? I really wanted to print out val, because that's the thing that goes from 0. Outval is going to go from 0 to minus 45 as that goes from 0 to 1, okay? So let's take a look at that, all right? Go to console. I told you these would be kind of random. So, proof. Here we go. Now watch this. This will go from 0 down to minus 45. And then it stops. Okay? Now, why am I having it go from 0 down to minus 45? Because in their infinite wisdom, they decided to do this in some kind of weird decibel thing where 0 dB is kind of unity gain, and then you subtract there. So as I go down here, it goes down to minus 45. Actually, you can go much lower than that if you want. That's how you address the volume specification for the mixer. I mean, most every other thing in the world uses some other scale, but they're just bizarre. Anyhow, let's go back. Now we've got this happening, okay? how do we get it, first of all, to be altered? Well, let's say we want it to go slower. All we have to do is multiply this times 0.5f. Right? Because that will basically, instead of this t-val going like 0 to 1 quickly, this delta time is being halved. So this will happen over 2 seconds now. In fact, we can generalize this and just say this divided by fade time. And we'll make fade time be a public variable. Float fade time, so that we can actually enter it in. Let's see if it works. Okay, we still have our printout here. Let's go out here. It's going to compile now, and on scene sound we should see now in that script. Did I save it? Let's go back. Okay, I'm going to stop this recording real quick. Well, it's kind of important to know which object you're looking at. We'd been working on the trigger, which is going to happen through the portal, because that's where we're going to control all the stuff that happens when you want to change your scene. I looked at scene sound, which is where we're generating the sound from, but that's not the script. It's the portal script where we put the script on. And there it is, portal trig script, and there's our fade time variable. And I'd set it to 5 because now we can see that it works. We'll go to our console, start this up, and you'll see the numbers go from 0 to -45 over 5 seconds. There we go. There we are. Okay, so our script is working. This is actually kind of a tricky thing to figure out which object should control what happens. And you have to kind of think about how you're going to divide your project up, because you can call basically any script on any game object from another game object, using that, find game object and find component stuff. Basically, the portal script is where all the stuff is going to happen that happens when we trigger the change of scene, including changing the audio and fading things out. Well, how do we fade things out? Well, for this, we're going to use the Unity audio system. And what you need to realize is that in this output of these audio sources we've been using, a lot of times it says none, or here it says missing audio mixer. That's because I'd set it up earlier. Basically, the default output just kind of goes out to this strange mixery thing, but we can actually insert our own mixer component. And I'm not going to go into the Unity audio much here, but let's go ahead and create a new mixer, a new audio mixer. Okay, and we'll call it master mix. Okay, and if we double click on it, it'll show up over here, and we see that we've got this kind of little virtual mixer component here. What we can do is go to scene sound, and by clicking on this, we can actually choose that master mix as where we're sending the output from our RTC mix generating script. And if I play this, I can control that output with this master mixer. Put it in edit and play mode so it will reflect what I do. I can fade it down, I can fade it up, fade it down, fade it up, do all kinds of fun things. Now, the really cool thing is that we can script this, and that's what we're going to do from our portal script. We're going to control that audio that will then fade out scene sound from here. How are we going to do that? Well, let's go back to our portal script, okay? And we'll start putting in place the components that we need to put in place. First of all, we have to know how to get in touch with that audio mixer thing. So we're going to create a public variable. We're going to say public, and then we're going to say audio mixer, but it's not going to show up. Yep, there it is. Nope, it doesn't show up. Why? Because we need to include up here using Unity editor, Unity engine, excuse me, dot audio. Now we can say public audio mixer, And we'll call it, what are we going to call it? We'll call it Master Mix. Oh shoot, I really screwed up here. Audio mixer, not audio clip. Audio mixer. Okay, we'll call it the mixer, just for fun, okay? All right. Now, in order to control the volume of this master mix mixer, we need to do something called expose the parameter. And right now, if we click on the expose parameters for this mixer, it says the list is empty. So I've gone to this master mix and I don't see any parameters. But if I select it, if I go up here to where it says volume, and I control click on it, this is kind of weird. I don't know why they did it this way. You can expose the volume of master to script. That's what we want to do. Now, if you look at the exposed parameters, you'll see that, in fact, there is my exposed parameter, the volume of master. Well, let's call it something that's more familiar. Let's call it mixer vol. So now we have a parameter here called mixer vol that we're going to be able to access from a script. So here we go back to the portal, and we have a thing now that's a public variable for the audio mixer. And all we have to do is simply, again, click on this thing, or we could drag it over, I think, and now we can select that master mix. So now, inside our script, for portal trig, we have this thing called the mixer, which gives us access to that audio mixer component. All right, now, what do we do next? Well, we've got our fading thing happening here, all right? Got T-val set to 0, so it's going to start at 0 and go down to -45. But again, remember, this is going to happen only after we trigger it. We don't want it to just start fading right away. So let's declare one more variable here. It's going to be a Boolean, okay, called goFade, which means we're going to go fading. And initially we'll set it to false, okay? And then in our update method, if goFade is true, it's Boolean, okay? Let's take all this stuff and start doing it. Bang. Let's get rid of our debug here. Get rid of this. Arg. Okay. And on trigger enter, when we enter the trigger, we're going to say goFade equals true. So when this is true, it'll start doing this calculation and it'll generate these out vals, which will go from 0 to -45. How do we set the mixer volume from that? Well, we've got this thing called the mixer. We can say here, the mixer dot set float, and we're going to set the parameter mixer vol that we named outside, and we're going to set it to out val. That's it. So now when we trigger the trigger by going through that little portal, set goFade to true, goFade will then start this calculation and the mixer volume will begin to come down. Let's see it in action. All right. Now I'm going to take out this coroutine so we don't actually switch our scene. And all we'll see is when we go through here, we'll watch the audio mixer go down in as it fades. All right. So let's try it out here. Okay. Let's go in. Now when I trigger it, boom, there it goes. It's fading out over 5 seconds. Okay, so we're pretty much there. The only last thing that we want to do is flush the RTC mix stuff that's happening on that scene sound. Okay, remember we had that scene sound script, and we put in this stop sound capability. So again, all the action is happening in our portal trig. Let's go here. And the first thing we want to do is find that scene sound. So we're going to say void awake. And in awake, we are going to say, let's see, we're going to have a scene audio component. Scene audio, scene sound component, we call it. Okay, and we'll call it SC audio, SC sound, we'll call it. Okay, and in awake, we're going to say SC sound equals game object dot find scene sound and dot get component, and the component we want to get is scene sound right. Okay, and what we're going to do is down here in Go Fade, let me look at my thing here. Okay, if this, actually we're going to do it inside Go Fade. Right. If tval is greater than or equal to 1.0f, so that means it's gone the entire sort of 0 to minus 45. If that happens, we're going to say SC sound dot stop sound, which will flush the RTC mix. Right. Now, our audio is all finished for this. Okay, again, I have the scene change commented out, but we can actually now check this again, go through, we'll fade out, flush the RTC mix script, and we're done. Okay, that fade's a little bit long. I'm going to make it a little bit faster. Let's make it be only like 2 seconds long, okay? Now, just for fun, we'll check it one more time. There it goes. All right. Now, we do need to modify the scene change itself. Okay, let's go back and look at our script. And basically, right now, this is set up here where this allow scene activation is true as soon as it starts. That will change the scene as soon as it's loaded. We don't want that to happen. We want the scene to change after it's loaded, obviously, but also after the mixer has faded out. Now we know when the mixer is faded out because tval is greater than 1.0f. We're going to create another Boolean variable up here, and we're going to call it switch scene. And initially we're going to set that to be false because we don't want it to switch a scene. Now, when we're stopping the sound, it's all faded out, it's ready to be switched, we're going to say switch scene equals true. Now down here we have to modify this load async sing, right? Where basically initially we want to allow scene activation to be false because we don't want it to load the scene right away. Now, this is where it gets a little bit weird looking, okay? I'm copying this from another website, okay? But basically, we're going to say while, okay, not async load dot is done. There it is. Okay. And we're going to say here, if, I'm going to explain this logic in a minute, switch scene, and that's a Boolean too, okay? Then we're going to say that this is true. And finally, up in this while statement is where we yield our return. Okay. There. Now, here's what's happening. We're going to start loading the scene. because we started the coroutine up here. But we set it not to activate when it gets completely loaded. We're saying that's false. We're going to wait. We're going to check here to say, well, is it really loaded? Is it really loaded? And while we check, we're also going to check to see if we've reached the end of our audio fade, where switch scene up here is set to true. Once we do that, then we say, okay, now we're going to allow the scene to be activated when you're finally loaded. And that's also where we do this yield return null, which allows the coroutine to keep going while all this other stuff up here is happening. So basically then, this will not switch the scene until the audio fade is over, as signaled by that right there. So now everything should be good. We're going to start this off. I'm going to go through and we're going to trigger it. Now here goes the fade. There goes the switch scene. So now we've got a nice audio fade, and then finally it'll switch scene. We can also throw in some fun stuff in terms of, like, you know, watching, you know, particle systems, Cloud R Vision or something like that. But that's how you do it. It's not too bad. It's a little tricky at parts, but the basic operation: start the fade, check to see when it's over. You know, start that coroutine, and when the fade is over, set your activation to be true, and that's it. So I'm going to stop this now, and we'll start another video in a little bit.